Hey there, this is Jenn Dize for Status Coup, and today for the first time Joe Biden has done an interview about the allegations that are out there against him by Tara Reade. Tara Reade was a staffer of his back in 1993 when he was in the Senate, and she alleges that he put her up against a cold wall and penetrated her with his fingers. So Joe Biden went on Morning Joe this morning, and Mika interviewed him, and he had to answer some tough questions. I actually happen to think that Mika did a pretty good job. There are several things, though, that she left out, which we will get into. So we're going to dive into the interview that Mika did, and then I'll stop along the way and give my thoughts. And I'm curious of your thoughts as well, so please like this video and leave your comments in the discussion area.
It's just going to be you and me, and I want to get right to the allegation made against you by Tara Reade. So the former Senate aide accuses you of sexual assault, and please, to our viewers, please excuse the graphic nature of this, but I want to make sure that there is no question as to what we're talking about. She says in 1993, Mr. Vice President, that you pinned her against the wall and reached under her clothing and penetrated her with your fingers. Would you please go on the record with the American people? Did you sexually assault Tara Reade?
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened. And it didn't. It never happened.
So this, as I mentioned, is the first time that Joe Biden has been directly asked this question. The media has been a complete and total failure. He's done interview after interview. No one asked him. Finally, he went on with Mika, and here we have him directly saying, no, this did not happen. I'm not here to get into whether I think it happened or whether I think it didn't happen. It doesn't matter. But what is happening right now in the media is exactly right as of this point forward. It is finally getting discussion. It is not being buried under the rug. Now, that's not to say it's being given a fair shake in the mainstream media, but finally the discussion is out there, and finally Joe Biden has had to directly answer whether or not this happened. It is a tragedy that it has taken this long for him to have to answer that question. Tara Reade has been trying to get her story out there for quite some time, and the media has largely failed her. It is a good thing. No matter who is right, no matter one of them's lying, regardless of who that is, it is important that this is talked about. It is important that Joe Biden is directly asked this question. We've had others like Stacey Abrams and Kirsten Gillibrand have to answer this question for Joe Biden. Notice they always turn to the women in matters like this. But now Joe Biden has had to answer directly. And I just want to say, kudos to Mika for making that happen. I know this couldn't have been easy. I think I mentioned already that I think she left some things out. She should have asked some questions, and I have some thoughts on that. Jordan has some thoughts on that as well. But this interview, for the most part, did press him, and I think does a pretty good job. So next, we're going to watch a clip where they talk about where this complaint would have been left. So Tara Reade says that she made a complaint with her supervisors, and it was a formal written complaint. So now the question is, where is that complaint? You'll see what Joe Biden says, and it's kind of an interesting scenario here. So let's give this a watch. 1 second here while I find the spot.
There's only one place a complaint of this kind could be: the National Archives. I am requesting that the Secretary of State ask the archives to identify any record of the complaint she alleges she filed. if there was any such complaint, the record will be there. Are you preparing us for a complaint that might be revealed in some way? Are you confident there is nothing?
I'm confident there's nothing. No one ever brought it to the attention of me 27 years ago. This is any assertion at all. No one that I'm aware of in my campaign at, my Senate office at the time is aware of any such request and or any such complaint. And so I'm not worried about it at all. If there is a complaint, that's where it would be. That's where it would be filed. And if it's there, put it out, but I've never seen it. No one has that I'm aware of.
Okay, so there are a couple of things here. First of all, is there a complaint? Second of all, if there is a complaint, where is it? Tara Reade says there is a complaint. Joe Biden says there was never a complaint made. And he has staffers who back him up on that. Tara Reade has others who back her up on the fact that there was. Again, who is telling the truth? That's not for me to decide. There's also the question of, if there is a complaint, where is it? We have a lot of Joe Biden's files in the archives of the University of Delaware. So it was all given, I believe it was 1,800 boxes were given to the University of Delaware of Joe Biden's various files. But there are other types of files that are in the National Archives. So Joe Biden says if this complaint exists, it would be in the National Archives. And this is important because he said this is an open book. Go ahead and search the National Archives and see if there's anything there. But as you'll see, he does not seem to have the same opinion about University of Delaware. He says, oh, they wouldn't be at the University of Delaware anyway, so it doesn't matter. And Mika actually really presses him on this issue and says, okay, well, if it's not there, then why not just do a search of her name and only go through those files if there are any that exist that have her name? Why only say it's okay to go through the National Archives files and not say it's okay to go through the University of Delaware files? Why not be completely transparent? And Joe Biden really doesn't have a good answer about that. But we'll come back to this topic because Mika brings it up again towards the end. Next, there's just a quick point I want to make about the New York Times.
New York Times has investigated this exhaustively. They didn't find any of your former staff members were able to corroborate the details of this allegation. She did file a police report a few weeks ago with the DC police.
So about the New York Times, this caused some controversy this past week because the Biden campaign had handed out, as we reported on here at Status Coup, had handed out campaign talking points, and this was out of an original report by BuzzFeed, had handed out talking points to surrogates and top Democratic operatives and top Democrats, elected politicians like Stacey Abrams, who is up there on the VP list, like Kirsten Gillibrand, who is an elected official and was using these talking points. Well, one of the issues is, as Stacey Abrams said, based on the talking points, we have to assume that she said it based on the talking points, is that the New York Times did a thorough investigation and found these allegations to be not true. Well, that statement is not true. The New York Times found no such thing, and actually one of the writers, Lisa Lehrer, came forward later on and made a tweet saying, that's not what the New York Times said. That's not what we found. So Joe Biden's campaign was lying. Why did they lie and pass out a lie as part of their campaign talking points? You could say, oh, that's just politics. But if there's nothing to hide, if this is an open book, why do that? So in Mika bringing up the New York Times, I wanted to say she should have pressed on that issue. Joe Biden, why did your campaign say that the New York Times found things it did not in fact find?
But since you want to set the record straight, Why limit this only to Tara Reade? Why not release any complaints that had been made against you during your Senate career?
I'm prepared to do that. The best of my knowledge, there's been no complaints made against me in terms of my Senate career, in terms of my office and anything that's been run. Look, this is an open book. There's nothing for me to hide. Nothing at all.
You were unequivocal, Mr. Vice President, back in 2018.
There we go. Joe Biden says that this is an open book. Well, again, if this is an open book, why not make the University of Delaware records available or have someone search through those? He says they're not fully archived or fully gone through because there are so many boxes and that the University of Delaware just isn't done going through them. But why not have some kind of group, some kind of staff group at the University of Delaware or some kind of something that could go through these files? If it's truly an open book, why not do that? If it's truly an open book, why is this the first time, Joe Biden, that you're going on national television to do an interview? Doesn't seem like very much of an open book to me. Let's look at some more of what Mika asks about the University of Delaware documents. I need to go up 1 second while I find this time code here. The MSNBC website doesn't make it easy.
HR complaints could be in the National Archives, but why not reveal your Senate documents that are being held in Delaware? I know there's 1,800 plus boxes, but if she believes and she alleges that the complaints may be hidden there, why not strive for complete transparency? Why was the access to those documents sealed up when they were supposed to be revealed?
Well, they weren't supposed to be revealed. I gave them the university. The university said it's going to take them time to go through all the boxes. They said it wouldn't be, and that wouldn't be before 2020 that occurred, or 2021. I can't remember the year they said. But look, a record like this can only be one place. It would not be at the University of Delaware. My archives do not contain personal files. My archives contain document, and when I say personnel files. They don't contain any personnel files. They're public records. My speeches, my papers, my position papers. And if that document existed, it would be stored in the National Archives, where documents from the office she claims to have filed her complaint with are stored. That's where they are stored. The Senate controls those archives. So I'm asking the Secretary of the Senate today to identify whether any such document exists. If it does, make it public.
Right, but there are claims and concerns and reports in Business Insider, and she claims that possibly a complaint or some sort of record of this might be at the University of Delaware. So, for complete transparency, why not push for the release of any documents with Tara Reade's name on them, whether it's at the University of Delaware or the National Archives?
First of all, let's get this straight. There are no personnel documents. You can't do that. You wouldn't, for example, if you worked with me or I worked for you and you had my income tax returns, you had my whatever. They're private documents. They're not they don't get put out in the public. So they're not part of the public record that in fact is that any senator or vice president or president has in their documents. Look, there was one place that she could file the complaint. And that office at the time was, all those records from that office are in the archives, and they're controlled by the Senate. That's where personnel documents would be if they exist. That's where the complaint would be if it exists.
Given the fact that you...
There we have Joe Biden saying pretty much the same thing. He's trying to steer away constantly from the University of Delaware files. Why is that? Maybe it's the case that complaint just would definitely not be at the University of Delaware. Maybe it's the case that it's only in the National Archives. Well, still, that question is going to be there. People are going to wonder about the University of Delaware files. It's already really blown up on Twitter. Everybody asking about the University of Delaware files and saying, oh, this is the new Hillary's emails. So If there's nothing there, why not just do a search of Tara Reade's name in the University of Delaware files? If there's nothing there, great. You're doing the search already with the National Archives. That's good. That's a good thing. But we still have these files over here that there are questions about, and that frankly there has been different reporting about than what Joe Biden is saying. So if this is really an open book, as Joe Biden says, why not just go ahead and release any files that have Tara Reade's name on them, no matter where they come from? That would be the best move for his campaign. Otherwise, this question will always exist. And remember, Joe Biden has a history of lying. That's no secret. He has a history of lying. He lied about apartheid South Africa and being arrested there on his way to meet Nelson Mandela. He lied about civil rights sit-ins and his participation in that. He's plagiarized. He's had to drop out of a presidential race because of plagiarism. Joe Biden is a known liar, so he needs to be more transparent. Those files at the University of Delaware, about an hour from where I am sitting right now, those files are going to cause a lot of questions, and it needs to be addressed. All right, here. Let's go skip on down here to about 12 minutes, 33 seconds in. This is the worst navigation bar ever. Sorry, guys. I keep losing it. Here we go.
Are you absolutely certain? Are you absolutely positive there is no record of any complaint by Tara Reade against you?
I am absolutely positive that no one that I'm aware of ever has been made aware of any complaint, a formal complaint made by, or a complaint by Tara Reade against me at the time this allegedly happened 27 years ago, or until I announced for I guess it was in April or May of this year. I know of no one who's aware that any complaint was made.
I've got two more questions. The first...
Okay, please.
Go ahead.
There we have it again. And one thing I want to point out as you look at this this whole interview, this interview in its entirety, I believe is 18 minutes long. So if you watch the whole thing, notice him talking about 27 years. He keeps bringing it up. This was 27 years ago. Yeah, that's true, it was. But he keeps bringing it up for PR and spin reasons. Be aware of these people and how they are. That's how Joe Biden is. The spin is there. The potential for lying is there. It's in his history. And that's not to say that Tara Reade has a perfect history herself. She certainly does not. She's praised Putin in the past. There are allegations of her and some nonprofit and some malfeasance there. But we're not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and just report on Tara Reade and her credibility. The woman, Tara Reade, has come forward and spoken. The Me Too movement says to believe women. Of course that doesn't mean believe women across the board. Of course it means that it needs to be investigated and vetted. But the first thing to do is to believe the woman. So I'm not going to sit here and break Tara Reade down. Although if I do get an interview with her, I do have a lot of questions for her. But there are no perfect victims. Just because a victim isn't, quote, perfect, doesn't mean it didn't happen. This video is getting a little bit long here, so I'm going to skip the end quote because I think you get the point about the University of Delaware records. I will point out that Joe Biden gets a little bit snippy with Mika. He starts to get testy because she keeps pressing him on the University of Delaware records and why they can't be released. I'm also curious as to why Mika didn't ask about the Larry King live tape. I think that would have been a good thing to do if you aren't familiar with that. Tara Reade told, I believe it was Ryan Grimm, that her mother had called into the Larry King live show, which then was on CNN, and had talked about this. Her name wasn't given and Tara's name wasn't given, but she said, yeah, she called in. Well, internet sleuths and journalists found it and put it out there. They found the recording. Tara said, yeah, that's my mother. So I don't know why Mika didn't ask about that and why she didn't press on the neighbor corroboration. At some point in the interview, Joe Biden starts to say that it was not corroborated, but that's not true because Tara Reade's former neighbor from around 1996 came forward and said, yeah, she told me these details at the time. So when Joe Biden keeps repeating 27 years, well, that's not entirely true because there are people who corroborate that she told them about this assault at the time. Also, Mika needed to ask more about the other women who have come forward saying that Joe Biden has made them uncomfortable and who have accused him of sexual harassment. Tara Reade is the only one who's accused him of sexual assault. I don't know if anyone else will ever come forward saying that, but there are other women who have accused him of inappropriate touching and worse. So those things could have been pressed more. Tara is actually going to do an interview this Sunday, I believe it is. So she's going to be interviewed in a national space, really for the first time. She's been interviewed for smaller publications, for independent media, but this will be her first really big interview. So Joe Biden has spoken out. Now Tara Reade is going to speak out, and people have to make up their minds. But I strongly believe those University of Delaware papers need to be brought forward. Before I go, I wanted to show you that Jordan had some questions as well. Why wasn't Joe Biden asked about these things? Number one, why was Tara Reade demoted or fired? That is a very important question. In Tara Reade's story, after she filed her complaint, she was demoted and then sent on her way. There are different variations of that story. It's important to note that, which is something that Joe Biden supporters love to latch on to. But that's something that Mika should have asked. Why was she demoted or fired? Why didn't things work out? A very important question. And Jordan also says, why did your campaign go through University of Delaware records, Business Insider reports, if, as you say, there are no personnel records there? That is an excellent and important question. Why? Why did the campaign go through those records? And that's something that I didn't bring up to this point, but is so important. If there's nothing there in the University of Delaware records, why was it important to his campaign at all? That doesn't make any sense. If there's nothing important there, why bother? Well, it seems like there might be a reason to bother. Number three, if you say this didn't happen, what was your interaction with Tara? Now, Mika sort of touched on this in the very beginning of the interview. She said, do you remember Tara? But Joe Biden skipped over that. He didn't answer that. He repeated, yes, this did not happen, but he wasn't made to answer what was your interaction with Tara Reade. So those are great questions from Jordan. And I told you the questions that I have, but I think it's really going to come down to those University of Delaware papers. They're important and they need to be investigated and they need to be reported on. The public has a right to know. We are in a presidential election. We have potentially 2 alleged sexual predators running for president right now. It is in the public's interest for this to be discussed, thoroughly investigated, and vetted. And I don't even want to talk about the disgusting comments I've seen from a lot of Joe Biden supporters who say they don't care if Joe Biden raped anyone. That it doesn't matter to them because Donald Trump has allegedly raped so many more women. this is a really disturbing story for so many reasons. We will stay on top of this, and we will do everything we can to keep reaching out to Tara to get an interview with her. We will be just on top of this story. Gosh, do I wish that I could go to the University of Delaware right now and do some digging myself, but we can dream, right? All right, this has been Jenn Dize, and I will see you in the next video.